to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be discussing Piercing. It's an indie movie. It's about piercing things. We're going to get to that in a little bit. First up, joining me, the homeless professor of Bloody Good Horror. Please welcome one, Mr. John Shelton.
Hello, hello.
Next up on the show, coming to us from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Hello.
And rounding us out tonight from Manhattan, New York City, please welcome business manager of Bloody Good Horror, John Schnorrs.
Hey guys.
Shanners, also known as the Schnorrs character.
I have so many names. I'm a man of many names.
Schnaps is one of my favorite, I think.
That's OG. That's like old school.
I like a good peach schnapps myself, if I'm being honest. You know? Get you drunk when you're 16.
I was going to say, I haven't had it since my teenage years, but I remember it, wistfully.
I have since had like adult drinks that have peach schnapps like as one part of a medley, and it's okay.
I would guarantee that the Shelton household contains many a schnapps. Where are we at? Where are we on that, John?
It's a schnapps level.
I think we're schnapless.
Oh, get out of here.
We're more of a herbal liqueur household here.
Okay.
Well,
I'm pretty sure we got a bottle of butter shots.
Thankfully, we're not schnapless on the show tonight, as John, you've graced us with your presence this week.
As always, yeah.
And we, so first up, people want to find us. They can do so obviously on the Android store, on Spotify, but also, also on Spotify was the point I was going to make, and then I ruined my own reveal there.
I like that you started with Android store. I don't even think that's
Download
the
our
name
app.
of a fucking
We're on
place
podcast.
that
You can
get
check us out on
podcasts.
Podcast Pickle.
I hope no one's typing Android store into their browser search bar right now. Where do I find? Yeah.
Jesus.
I don't know. iTunes is good.
You can find us
Got
places, but my
Apple
point was we
Podcasts.
are now on Spotify.
Yeah, it's been like a couple months, and we've seen definitely uptick in listenership there. I mean, it's still small, but look, if people are Spotify users, check us out.
Yeah.
What do you got to lose?
There you go.
I mean, virtually nothing. I would say if you're already paying for Spotify, literally nothing to lose. So,
Real quick, John, it's been a few weeks since we said this, but while we have Shelton here on the show, we should say that we are planning a BGH meetup for this fall.
we sure are. I would say that Joe is largely handling a bulk of the planning right now.
I wouldn't want to not give Joe his due credit. He'll literally never let me forget about
he's
it.
gonna listen to this and get very irate.
said
He's not working right now, so he's sitting at home taking notes on the podcast that he's gonna come back and give to us. Yes, but I think so. It's the weekend of the 21st of September. We will be in Chicago. We will be hosting a Patreon exclusive Friday night, which is going to be a small gathering of patrons who are able to be in town. And then
if you show up and you're not a patron, GTFO.
Yeah, no.
Get out.
Casey's going to kick your ass out.
Casey's working the door.
I was going to say there's going to be a velvet rope. It'll say patrons on it. No, I mean, it's going to be a good time. But that's kind of locked down. We're in good shape there. The harder part is finding a place that will let us come in and run what will probably go down in history as one of the finest horror-related trivia events of all time. So,
yeah, I mean,
if you're listening to this and know of a venue in Chicago, hit us up.
The first Shelton run trivia night at the BGH tenure has gone down in the books of legend, John.
It was good fun. Yeah.
Very good times. Some of the hardest GIF guessing I've ever had. Like, he managed to find a bunch of horror GIFs that I could not place for the life of me.
It was good stuff.
Although I did know a fair amount of the dumb, obscure ones, so I was pretty proud of that.
It was a multimedia experience.
Yeah. So John makes a good point. This is going to be in Chicago, so since if you're planning on going, we would say don't book like lodgings yet because we don't know exact area of the city we're going to be in for everything, but definitely block that weekend out. if I could give you a piece of advice, John, I might take Friday and Monday off from your job because last time I didn't do that and I had to go to work on Monday after flying back Sunday night, and that was maybe the worst day of my life.
No, definitely. The older you get, you got to have that buffer day. You
At
can't
least-
just come home and go back to
I mean,
work.
realistically, I need a buffer week, but I don't think I could make that happen. So
And John, it is a BGH meetup, so there's a strong chance that vodka schnars will show up.
Oh, that's almost definitely true. And I went to work that following Monday, and it was kind of like any other Monday for me.
you can go back and chronicle this in the show, but it like now like I have like health problems that like I really shouldn't be drinking anyway. But I was still complaining about being hungover almost 4 weeks after the tenure, because I was like
Yeah.
I was counting at some point because I was impressed even by my own old manness.
Some of us are made from heartier stock,
Yeah,
is
not
all I
me.
would say.
It's not me.
And so
I'm like a thin broth with just like turnips, no meat, no bones, just dirt.
It's a nice vegetable broth.
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a good event. Listen, it is our 2019 capstone event for us here at Bloody Good Horror. Yeah, we're all for the most part old now. We have families. We probably would love to do more of this, but this is, I think, what we can muster this year, and we're very excited.
Well,
about
it's
it,
no, I think it's you might say it's the most exciting event since the BGH tenure, John. I think.
for BGH. Yes, I would
No,
not argue that.
I think for anyone, but okay. I was thinking what's kind of cool is that this is the first time we've done a meetup since like Slack existed, right? I don't think Slack was around when we did the last one.
Well, we had Slack that we just used for like
Oh,
BGH
interesting.
staff.
Yeah, so like now we actually I don't think we had a great idea of how many people were actually going to show up last time, whereas now we can see like our patrons hanging out and they're planning what they're going to do, and everybody's nervous like little high school kids. It's really cute. Listen, we are organizing a meetup of like awkward quiet horror fans, but believe me, last time was a lot of fun. We all just like, you just feel like fast friends, especially when you're a part of the community. So I would encourage anybody. We had some people last time who were like either went and said they were nervous about going and then really glad they went, or people who didn't go because they were nervous. And I would just say like, put yourself out there, man. It was a good time.
Yeah, we're all big old
Sure.
dorks, so
Oh,
come be
huge,
dorky with us. We'll have a good time,
huge dorks.
regardless.
And now we're dad dorks, which is like the worst kind.
Yep.
I'm
It's
gonna
the
get a
bottom.
brand new
It's the bottom
pair of
the dork. Yeah.
just to show my dadness, John. I'll get a brand new pair of New Balance sneakers before we go,
Exactly.
in case Andy takes me on a death march through the city again. Chicago's way bigger than Milwaukee too. He could probably get the job done if he wanted to hike me across the city and kill me.
They've got
Well, there's
proper
public
transport,
transport, so-
transportation. Yeah.
I'm taking the fucking train. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love the uncertainty behind a lot of the questions we get on Slack from the patrons and stuff like that, because they don't know quite what to expect, and it's pretty funny to watch. Like, I remember one of the earliest questions we got on after announcing this meetup is, anybody else bringing their spouses?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what you're expecting, but
We
it's
did
not gonna be
have-
that exciting.
It's not a key party. We did have some people bring spouses, and some people were solos or came with other PGH patrons and friends or whatever. So,
Yeah.
and then
all
we
are
had
welcome.
that at the trivia night. We had that one dude who just showed up because we did a bunch of promoting through the local radio station. Remember that guy?
Yeah. Yeah, he won free tickets.
Yeah,
didn't
he won something, didn't he?
Yeah, he won. Yeah, maybe he won.
Oh, he
like-
won the tickets to the.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
And he seemed to have a good time. So there you go.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that our trivia venue this time has lower lights. Because
Well, we'll figure.
getting-
we will.
it was
it's
like
still
a-
undecided. So
it was
we
a
can work on that.
it was a distillery, so and we literally drank like in the room with like the tanks of fine grog, John, or whatever, and
grog. That's what they call it.
the
What a
like
technical.
getting that unbelievably lit in a room with that much light was a little distressing at some point, because like if you feel like you're gonna vomit, you want the lights down low. You know what I mean?
Oh, Eric. Yeah.
And
you
then
had
I-
a different
Eric's-
experience.
And
than
then I
us.
super.
Yeah, Eric's going hard in the paint.
And then I definitely almost threw up in like a 90-year-old movie theater during our midnight screening. I did go to make it to the bathroom, but
I mean, I fell asleep.
turns
So there's
out
that.
when you're too drunk and you're like you feel sick, the worst smell possible, John, is the smell of like a 90-year-old movie theater that's been rotting for 80 years. Like That place, I loved it. It was like one of the most beautiful theaters I've ever seen in my entire. Like I was mesmerized by that place, but it also smelled so bad that I can still taste it. Like I could still pick that smell out of a lineup. How bad that place smelled.
I don't remember any of the smells.
I
I'll
think
just
they
put
pumped that in
out.
especially for Reanimator.
You know why,
There you
John?
go.
Because you sat down in your chair and dropped your beer and spilled the whole thing down the whole walkway.
Yeah, well, because I was asleep. That's why I dropped. That's why I dropped the beer. So it's hard to hold on to when you're sleeping.
John Schnorrs.
Yes, Eric.
We're gonna review Piercing here in a little bit, but I
Mhm.
wanted to learn a little bit about this movie before we did that.
Mm.
This guy Nicolas Pesce, Jason.
I would have gone Pesci.
I've heard it both ways, but I've heard Pesce.
Well,
Either
okay.
way, we interviewed him a few weeks ago on the site. Jason talked to him, big horror fan. You want to tell us a little bit about this movie that we're going to be talking about here soon?
Oh boy, Piercing. So this was I believe Sundance last year. It kind of made the festival circuit in 2018. It got picked up by Universal for sort of a proper release, and kind of came out this year, limited theatrical and VOD in February. Yeah, Nicolas Pesce. I'm going with Pesci, so that's just how it's going to be.
What about Pesce?
I'm thinking pesky.
Pesky.
Nice hard C.
It's fish, right? Isn't there like a
Yeah.
way you say it in Italian? I don't know.
Pescatarian.
So in any event, Pesci, he is probably best known so this is his second feature, and best known previously for directing The Eyes of My Mother, which we did a show on probably year and a half, 2 years ago.
So Eyes of My Mother was like an indie movie. It was black and white, right? It was about the girl who she lived by herself, and then we discovered that she saw like her parents kill a person or something, right? Through flashbacks when she was a kid, and it kind of messed her up, and now she's like kind of weird.
Yes, a lot of weird shit happens.
Yeah.
It was like told in 3 parts. I mean,
I'm gonna
look,
be
there's
honest,
a lot of.
I don't remember how I felt about that movie, but I remember it, like I think of it fondly when I put it in my brain, but I can't really tell you what I thought about it.
Well, and you know it's funny because I like when we were first, and I'm sure we probably talked about it at the time when we saw that movie. Wasn't it in Spanish? Am I like imagining that?
Maybe it was both. Maybe the parents spoke Spanish to her or something. There wasn't a lot of dialogue, period, because it was like a lot of just her.
Yeah. And then she gets a little tortury though on a guy.
He's got a theme. This guy. He's got a theme he likes to explore.
He definitely he's mining some ground.
Yeah.
And there's themes. So yeah, the cast here really just 2 characters, I would say. The first is Christopher Abbott, best known maybe for Girls. Is that, I don't know? Does that work for y'all?
Oh, okay. Wait, who is he in Girls?
He's like, well, his name's Charlie, but I mean, look,
It's been years since I have watched most of that show, but it's been years and I never finished it.
I'm gonna make the assumption he's not the girl.
But I did feel like
he's not one of the girls.
I did feel like I recognized him, but I couldn't.
He dates Lena Dunham's character. Or no, maybe he dates. I don't know.
Yeah.
In any
It's hard
event,
to say.
he's also on The Sinner, which I know people were pretty into that. Yeah.
Is he on the first season?
2017. Yeah, I think so. Right, that's the first season.
Huh.
But yeah, so Christopher Abbott, and then the second, the only other sort of like primary character is Mia Wasikowska.
Mike Wazowski.
Mia Wasikowska. So, and she's kind of, she's certainly been around. She played Alice in the Alice in Wonderland sort of live action. She was in Crimson Peak, Stoker, which I believe we did on Sophistical Cinema way back in the day.
Indeed. Also, Maps to the Stars, the Cronenberg movie. She was in that.
Oh God, yeah. She takes some interesting roles, is what I would say. But yeah, so it's just the 2 of them, and Pesci wrote and directed. So this is definitely, I would call this auteur cinema. Does that seem fair, John? Is that a proper use of auteur?
It's safe to say, I think, yeah.
So, yeah, I will also add, and I'm sure Eric was going to go there. It comes in at a trim 80 minutes.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh my God. I cannot even tell you how excited I got.
Like 75 minutes with credits. So
yeah, with the credits. So, although I did watch most of the credits because there's some good tunes.
Dope song.
Mm-hmm. So that's where we're at. This got a lot of sort of attention on the festival circuit. I mean, we certainly had been kind of like hearing chatter in Slack. I think we had a review a while back actually up on the site. So I was pumped that we got our hands on it.
Love it. Well, thank you for that, John.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I think we're going to do it here. Let's take a quick break and discuss piercing.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Up the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. John Schnars.
Yes, Eric.
Now that we know what piercing is, why don't you tell me what... Oh, wait. We're not even there yet. Words. I forgot about... God damn it. 500 and whatever many episodes. I forgot about words, John. That's how long it took.
Dude, I wasn't even sure what was happening. I was just like, I'm going to play along in case Eric's having a fucking mental breakdown. And,
You know what, John?
Here we are.
Dealing with life shit, you know?
Mm-hmm. I hear.
Words. Tervis tumbler you got there. What's that? What kind of Tervis you got there?
This is a Phillies Tervis tumbler.
Nice. Do you have a Duke Tervis? You do, don't you?
I do. I have a Phillies and a Duke.
Oh God, John, I'm being so negligent in my duties this week. How much did your parents pay to get you into Duke?
Here we go.
You clearly missed this conversation on Slack today.
Oh yeah. So how much?
No, first of all, Duke wasn't even involved in the scandal, so I don't even want to fucking hear about it right now.
I'm sure no one paid money to get their kid into Duke, Schnars.
And Eric, the point that I made is I'm still paying my goddamn undergraduate student loans, so I don't think my parents were paying all that much to get me into school.
Well, you still pay for school, John. You still pay. You still pay for school. It's just to get you in.
Yeah, if the parents are paying $500,000 to get their kid into USC. Yikes. Like, that's all.
Ooh, USC shade. Nice.
I mean, look, I spent a semester at USC. I love USC, but that's, $500,000. I guess some people got into like Yale and Wake Forest and also they're doing all right.
Man. It's like one day you wake up and Becky from Full House is in jail and it's like you don't even know what's real anymore.
There's no way they're going to jail. I mean, I really hope they do,
but like prosecutor seems real itching for it.
It would be glorious.
Yeah.
I'm very in. I love that the guy basically, I don't know if you guys all read, if you read, like John, I know read a bunch because you shared that Deadspin article that I went through. They basically flipped the dude who was like the ringleader and he just handed them all of these people.
That's how it works, man.
So crazy. Mm-hmm. But he must have been cooperating for like months and months.
Listen, he's a cheese-eating rat, Schnars, okay? That's all you need to know. If you can't trust the guy who's faking shit to get you into college, who can you trust, John?
Oh man,
it's like it's like the Robert Kraft thing. It came out that there were cameras in that place before the cops broke in and installed cameras. There were already cameras.
Yeah,
if you can't trust your rub and tug joint, then who can you trust?
Yeah, that's tough. It's tough. Society really breaking down.
It's tough
really
tough being a billionaire, John.
Yeah. No, it's this story. I'm all in on this story. Just to be clear,
yeah.
I'm interested. Even if Duke was involved,
I mean,
I would still be in.
It's all very amusing. What I'm really waiting for is the outrage, right? Like people should be in the streets, John. I mean, just generally nowadays, like everyone should be in the streets. I feel like.
Well, it's by the streets. You mean Twitter?
Well,
it's
but
happening.
but to me, John,
That
it's so indicative of so many other things going on in society right now, and the divide between people. I'm just saying, let's get some torches.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the president's dad paid 7 figures to get him into Penn after he had already been like a mediocre student at another college.
Is it possible you're acting so outraged by this to throw us off the scent of your own story? I'm just asking questions, okay? I'm not actually saying that.
I'm a little upset that you think so lowly of me that I would have needed to pay to get into school. So
well, based on your word performance on the show, John. Which brings me back to my main point, John, which is please bring us the word of the day.
I will just point out, John made the point about Twitter. If you go look at whatever Laughlin's daughter's Twitter account,
she's one of these influencer D-bags.
Yeah, no, she does not know words. Like her vocabulary might be.
Somebody went back to 2016 and dug up like a dozen tweets about her being like, "Oh, I hate school so much. It's so stupid. I don't want to be here." And it's like, oh.
She's posted that like every 2 weeks for the last like 3 years.
Yeah, insane.
Awesome.
In any event, today's word is halcyon. 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 Halcyon means denoting a period of time in the past that was idyllically happy and peaceful. Like when you thought that you got a 34 on the ACT instead of the 28 that you
I got a lacrosse scholarship, and I don't even know what lacrosse is. It's awesome. College is easy.
Halcyon.
Fun fact, John. So in New York State, they have these things called Regents tests.
Yeah.
Which is basically like it's a high school thing. It's not a college thing, but colleges in New York.
I live in New York State.
Colleges in New York like look at this stuff if you're going in state or whatever.
Yeah.
Out of state colleges don't care. But either way, so I had a teacher who was just like, there was nothing that nefarious going on, but I was a really shitty student. She was trying to help me during one of these tests, and like kind of nudged me on something. This was the math Regents. John, I got a 34 on that test.
Wait, what? I don't know what it's out of.
100.
35? Oh, Jesus Christ.
What do you mean? It's 100? It's a test. I got a 34.
Oh my God.
All right, it's out of 30, John. Turns out I'm actually a math genius.
Yeah, wizard. Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's my cheating at testing.
You got one of those coveted audio editing scholarships.
Yeah.
To college. Yeah. Okay. Well, so halcyon. So I also learned in looking up this word, it's also the name of a tropical Asian and African kingfisher with brightly colored plumage. And that's actually where the all the etymology is about the bird and not anything to do with idyllically happy and peaceful times of the past. So, And
what does that have to do with this movie, John?
Well, it's sort of unclear to me if this is sort of directly related to the movie, but in the film, our main character, the Christopher Abbott character, whose actual character name I'm forgetting right now, he is dosed with a drug called halcyon.
Yeah,
spelled a little differently, and
it's a cool word.
It's a great word. It's a great word. Everyone should know it. It's sort of it's one of those what do they call them? 50-cent words, quarter. What do they call nice words? I know I forget.
Go shorty. It's your birthday.
Yeah. So, but he gets dosed with a drug, halcyon.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a metaphor, maybe it's not. Well, we will have to discuss.
What's really amazing, John, is that I even have a job or I only applied to one college.
Mm-hmm.
And in retrospect, I'm sorry, I did apply to 2.
Are you trying to just make a case for how your parents didn't pay to get you in?
I did
after
apply.
That 34.
I applied to 2 schools. My safety school rejected me. The long shot school accepted me, and those were the only 2 I applied to.
Right.
Well, you know what that sounds like. I think maybe you're the one whose parents kicked out a little cash.
No.
Lord.
If only
that teacher went back and filled in, you would have actually had like a 28.
After you left, she went through and erased everything.
She
and
definitely
put in the right answers.
She definitely passed me senior year, like I got a 65, which means there's no way I got a 65. Like on the dot, sure.
Yeah.
She's a
Yeah, I don't
dude.
know.
Bless her heart, she's a saint. Otherwise, I'd probably be living in a gutter somewhere. If I had
I,
if I had a year off before going to college, I'd be a friggin' mess.
I just want to call out that if it was 100 questions on the test and you just straight up guessed on multiple choice, there's like you'd get 25.
Well,
by,
part of the
like,
problem is
statistical
that
averages.
the second half of the test was all show your work, so you couldn't
Ooh,
guess, and
yeah,
you
that'll
got point,
get you.
and you would get points off if you didn't actually show the proper work,
Mm-hmm.
which is bullshit. 'cause
That's
fuck
where you knew you were getting a really rough score.
Yeah.
You you were cruising to that point.
There's way more to the story that I'm not gonna tell because we don't have time. But anyway.
I'm loving this. We should get into this. Actually.
Oh, John.
The Eric show. Back
It's
to the formative years.
It's real bleak. John, why don't you tell me about this movie?
Piercing. So the character's name is Reed. That's Chris Rabbit. So we meet Reed. He's with his wife Mona and their very young daughter. In fact, the very first shot of the film is Reed. You see the daughter, and all you see is a fucking ice pick come into the picture, sort of like hovering above the daughter's face. And then we sort of like draw out, and so you see Reed holding this ice pick. So what we come to realize is he's packing up for a business trip, or what he's told his wife is a business trip. And what he's actually doing is going to a hotel. He's hired a prostitute. This prostitute's going to come to the hotel, and then he's going to kill her by stabbing her with this ice pick. And he's worked this out to like the nth degree. He's kind of rehearsed it a bunch. He's practiced taking chloroform himself, which I wasn't 100% clear what was going on there, but maybe we can get into that. At the last minute, he decides he's going to not change the plan, but he calls the agency and tells them he wants to move up his appointment one day. And what that does is it actually changes who the appointment was going to be with, whether or not my suspicion is that was actually, he was okay getting somebody different because that was like part of it is he wanted it to be a different, in any event. When the woman comes, Mia Wasikowska, Jackie, they kind of have this like initial strange interaction, and she goes into the bathroom, and he basically goes in there when he hasn't heard from her, and he walks in and she is just stabbing herself in the leg with the same ice pick, I believe. So this kind of like kicks off this, I don't know, like cat and mouse sort of back and forth between them, where he is very much still focused on trying to kill her. He's also sort of convinced himself that she wants to be killed. She's an S&M specialist. That was all part of the plan. And it sort of then becomes this thing where she's sort of playing her own S&M games back with him.
It sounds so clinical when you say S&M specialist. It was actually her minor.
That's what it says on her business card.
It's her S&M was actually her minor. She actually majored in espresso making.
Human sexuality.
She majored in M&Ms.
Yes, S&M was her minor. M&M was her major. It's a weird program, but I don't know. It worked for her.
Yeah. So that's kind of the movie. They do end up like the movie really only takes place. There's two characters. It takes place in 2.5 locations, and eventually he ends up back at her apartment and that's where it's not that she's turned the tables on him, but they're kind of like playing out the end game of their, I don't know, interaction. Specialist. I don't know what you want from here.
Beep boop, beep boop. I am Schnarzbot. You just refer to the things happening in this movie as an interaction.
Wait, like sexy fun times?
Well, he's
like,
not wrong.
So they were going to have the intercourse, and
Quite the experience.
beep boop beep. Great, thank you, John.
I don't think there was going to be any intercourse involved, if I'm not mistaken.
Stop saying intercourse. Shelton, what'd you think of this movie?
Oh, what did I think? So at first, after I watched this, I was a little iffy on it. Towards the negative side, I would say immediately after finishing, and I've thought about it a lot since then, and I've come a little more positive on it. I really like the first half of it, especially when he's going through all of his plan and he's kind of like going through it in his head. And he's got it all like meticulously planned. He's writing everything down and like rehearsing it and chloroforming himself and everything. And it's pretty funny. Um, he's just like, because he's kind of like a dork. Like it's just like what do you, like, he's got these really in-depth plans, kind of passionless, kind of just like straightforward. Like, well, first she has to be a prostitute. She has to speak English, and there has to be S&M. And then he practices all of his lines and everything and rehearses. So I like that part. Then when she comes into it, I don't know. From that point, it was fine. It just sort of played out the way that I expected. There's a lot of homage in this movie. We haven't really talked a lot about that, but there's a lot of throwbacks to giallo movies. There's music from a lot of Argento movies.
We should point out when you say that, you mean actual music from Argento movies.
Yeah, no, literally,
Yeah.
like it's got the theme song from Deep Red, and also Tenebrae and like some other stuff. Like it's the original like 70s Goblin tracks, which it's always awesome to hear that in a movie.
Goblin is dope. What can I say?
Yeah, Goblin rules. There's a lot of split screen that's very like Brian De Palma, like obvious kind of like hat tip to him. We didn't mention that this is actually based on a book, a Japanese book by the author, because apparently Audition was a book as well. So it's the novelist who wrote Audition, and there's a lot of Mike and especially Audition in this as well. So I found it a little heavy-handed with all the homages, without really that much more to it. And still, my overall feeling of the movie is that it's a little bit slight. It's I don't know.
75 minutes. Like it's almost hard
Yeah,
to
exactly.
not be slight.
And so I don't want to complain about that, because like that's great that a movie can get stuff done so quick, but it also kind of feels like this movie is missing the whole third act. It ends kind of at an unexpected point, and I kind of feel like it needed a little more after that. Assuming there is more to the story after that. And I think that's why, I think a lot of people, when this ends, will be like, what the fuck? That's the ending. Which I didn't have so much, but still, I was kind of like, it's kind of slight. It felt like a short film or like something in an anthology. I think it might have fit better as that. It would have been like a really good, like 40-minute, short film or something. So yeah, I'm kind of iffy.
Yeah.
Casey.
I ended up enjoying this movie. It didn't blow I wouldn't call it mind blowing. It's not like it probably won't even make my top 10. I found it pretty interesting though, from beginning to end. It's been a good while since we've watched a movie that made me think, "What the fuck?" a lot throughout the watching of a movie. So that was kind of a nice change of things. And a lot of stuff that Shelton's bringing up, he's not wrong. There's a lot of homages and stuff going on here that you could discount the filmmaking if you wanted to go that route. I understand, but overall, I really like the look of this thing and the way it came together. The story was really weird. It got weirder as it went. I thought the actors were great. It was all pretty good. I really liked as Christopher Abbott was our main guy. The performance he gave, he was really creepy from the very start, but he was also very even in his creepiness throughout the entire movie. Whereas Mia Wasikowska was she was very weird and kind of creepy in her own right, but she was also all over the place intentionally, and it was a pretty good range, I think, for her too. So I found it all pretty interesting and entertaining, and for me, I thought the 81-minute runtime was great, because as weird as this movie was, and some of the stuff it was hard to suss out, and I feel if they tried to tack more on, it just would have got more confusing or lost in itself.
Listen, you will never hear me complain about an 80-minute movie, bro.
Well,
I think it's a coincidence this movie comes out we watch this the same week that Game of Thrones tries telling me that 80 minutes is a movie length episode. They're like, Piercing. Look at Piercing. That's a movie. Go ahead.
Sure, that's exactly
like
what
in
Game
the
of
press
Thrones had in mind.
Yeah.
yeah.
Says Dan and Dave, the showrunners. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I mean, so I really like this movie a lot too. And like, I think on the one hand, to say you could call it derivative, right? In some ways, I think that does it a pretty big disservice. I think it is visually very interesting / impactful. I think he makes a lot of decisions and takes a lot of not risks necessarily, but he just does things in a sort of non-traditional way that makes what is otherwise a really small film feel more complex. And in saying it's a small film, I think the other thing to call out is like we actually cover a lot of ground because like what the movie ultimately becomes about is so it really explores this idea of why he feels like he needs to kill, or if not why, like how it's sort of manifesting in him. And it's so you get these like very disorienting flashbacks. You also get in some ways it's one of the best instances of the unreliable narrator, because really early on in the film there are times where I think the first time it happens, it might even be in the first conversation he's having with his wife, where it's basically he'll be talking and he'll be thinking about sort of the murder, and something will happen, and he'll like hear basically an auditory hallucination that we hear as well. So like maybe the first one's actually a phone call. He's like, oh, at the hotel, he's talking to the front desk, and the front desk is like, yada yada, like I think your guest is here, and he's like, okay, thanks. And then when they would say, okay, bye, they say, you can still kill her, or something along those lines. And so this movie just plays with perception. It plays with space in pretty interesting ways. And so, yeah, I thought it was really compelling. I mean, certainly it draws on a lot of influences that John called out a bunch. I actually was getting, and maybe it was just because of the way he used sort of miniatures, but there was like a Wes Anderson, like a real dark Wes Anderson vibe to some of this. We haven't really positioned it as such, but it really is sort of like a dark comedy. I mean, super duper dark and like bleak in a lot of ways. But it's set in a non-realistic, it's set in like generic city, and like that to me also was reminiscent of Wes Anderson. The way he imagines the space and creates the space of the film was very much sort of artificial but intentionally so. So yeah, I ultimately like really liked it. This is art house horror sort of in its like most fun in a lot of ways, because I think this movie is sort of fun. I don't know. That was my experience.
What was the most fun part for you when she stabbed her leg repeatedly with scissors?
I like
Was that the most fun?
I just like their interactions together. Like, I mean, no, I like.
Was it the
It's really a
was-
meet cute, if you think about it.
Yeah. I actually really, I mean, you guys all said it, but like I really like both these actors. I think Mia Wasikowska is excellent, and
Yeah.
like this movie just lets her like chew scenery
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, and she's great at it. And she
Yeah.
just has like a very interesting look about her that she really uses,
like
and
a
that
young,
the camera
like a
uses
young
as well.
Tilda Swinton, John. She's got
Yeah,
she got
yeah.
that haircut, all intense.
Mhm.
Yeah, let me preface my comments on this movie by saying this. I had a fever last night. I was pretty tired. I had to go
It's a
back.
rough go.
I had to go
That
back.
probably changes this movie a lot.
Well, yeah, I had to go back and watch some because I definitely fell asleep last night. Like, if this is a movie in which 99% of the dialogue is spoken in like weird hushed tones, and so like if you are already sleepy or don't feel well, it's like ASMR or whatever. You just literally it was like lulling me into a sleep. Because it's just like they're just like, what if we did it as an M? Can
It's a little mumblecore-y.
He's just like, can I tie you
I got
up?
some Duplass vibes.
Can we eat first? Oh, yeah, we got okay. That sounds good. That's basically the entire movie, which is fine. I'm not complaining, but like it just was tough for me last night. I will say, kind of going back, finishing it tonight, and thinking about it, I think that I'm excited for what Nicolas Pesce is going to do in the future. I think that this thing wasn't necessarily for me, at least in the headspace I was in. And honestly, it's like one of those things that might have been different on a different day. But I agree that there's a lot of tension. There's a ton of tension between what's going to go down between these characters. I think that Wasikowska is like, she's actually kind of like electric in this movie. Like she is just got this real weird vibe. You don't know what's going on with her. The guy is really good too. I love the set. I love Wasikowska's apartment in this movie. It's like a weird, like definitely some Tarantino shit. I think that it kind of goes for this intentionally hallucinatory, or not maybe that, but like disorienting vibe, where like it wants to throw you a bunch throughout, and I think that my issue with that is that it actually diffuses some of the tension. Because there's moments where you kind of can't get yourself grounded in what's going on enough to like understand what's even happening. Like the motivations get intentionally jumbled and confused, so then you're just kind of like, well, what's happened? Like I've watched the whole movie, I don't know what this dude's deal was. What's this dude's deal? I don't know.
Mommy issues.
Yeah, but like okay, but was he hallucinating all the things? I mean, I assume his baby wasn't
Well,
talking to him.
That's one of the things that kind of turned me around on the movie, thinking about it after I watched it. You know, like I said, I was a little down on it. Then thinking about it, I came around a little bit. And it was realizing that the whole movie is told from his point of view, very, very close to his point of view, to the point where you're hearing like internal monologue, like going through his head. And it never strays from his point of view. So you get a lot about his motivation. You see, there's like the halcyon scene. There's flashbacks and weird drug things and hallucinations that kind of give you a little insight into what his motivation is. And one of the things that I didn't like initially about the movie is you don't really learn anything about Mia W. I'm not even gonna try. You know, because she's equally fucked up, but you never really find out what her deal is. She just like kind of, he kind of has this thing he's prepared in his head, and he tries to go through with it, and then she completely throws him, and then he, kind of deals with it for a minute, and then goes back in again and tries to like write things again, and she throws him again. But you never really find out what she's about. But then when I thought about it, that makes sense because it's from his point of view. And so it's kind of okay that you don't find out about her. And I think that even maybe explains a little bit of the ending. If it's all so tight from his point of view, then
it really kind of helps accentuate like the kind of manic performance she gives throughout this movie, and she's kind of up and down and all over the place. And I mean, because when we first see her, she's dragging herself out of bed. It looks like she takes some pills. It looks like she's dealing with like a heavy depression or something like that. And then we don't see that through the rest of the movie, but we see a whole lot of other moods and things that are going through her. And like you're pointing out there, because I hadn't really thought of that before, but since we don't, that it really helps to make her seem more alien, because we don't know where she's coming from, but we know where he's coming from. That really stands out well.
Yeah, I mean that was for me the strongest piece, is that it like I said, he plays around with perspective. And it's not heavy-handed. It's not like there's like first-person shots or anything, but it very much is it's a perspective film. And that's what I loved, like the way that it opened up because I sort of took it initially as like, oh, we're getting a sort of more sympathetic approach to the psychotic, serial killer, because they very much show him as a family man. He's clearly sort of like wrestled with his need to kill, and he's actually like held at bay his need to kill basically forever. And this is going to be his like first thing. He kind of talks about how he's hopeful that it's just this one time and then it'll never have to happen again. But
Sympathy is like a strong word, I think, but
well, no, but I just mean like that's how it's presented, and then but it does begin to sort of like unwind and reveal sort of like what's inside of him. I mean, look, like
because
at the end of the day, like
they certainly give you a more fully painted picture of him as opposed to just like being a killer, but like he's so callous about the whole thing.
Sure. Well, I mean,
like it means nothing to him.
He's like literally fucked up in that,
because we see that he's like that because of the fucked up childhood he went through.
We
see the flashbacks, or at least we can assume that.
Yeah, I mean, you at least look like it's an 80-minute film, so it's almost like a character sketch in a lot of ways, but it feels feels richer than to just say it's a character sketch, if that makes sense. Like it's a deep character sketch. It's an exploration of this one guy. I mean, and yeah, like whether that sort of undercuts what Jackie, the Mia W character, brings to the film. Like, I mean, that's just sort of the film that he was making, this time. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and Eric's not wrong. He does come across as callous sometimes when he comes with some of the stuff, as we're hearing his thought process and he's going through this stuff and how matter of fact he is. I'm going to go to this hotel. I'm going to murder a prostitute because I need to get it out of my system, yada yada yada. But at the same time, you get kind of lulled into saying, "Though this is the way this guy is, this is weird." Then we get to that flashback back scene, which is what really blew my gourd because some of it I'm still not sure I fully understand. We talked about this in the email. I know I'm not alone. There's a lot of images that are thrown at you. They're pretty out there. You see his you're able to piece together his involvement. I think his mom's involved. I'm not sure exactly how.
There's some little tentacle scorpion as well.
Yeah, there's some weird
Oh,
tentacle
God.
scorpion. There's some other blonde lady that I'm not sure where she came from, but as you start to see that, then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, this guy's traumatized. No wonder he's weird. And
I
then,
completely forgot about that scorpion thing.
yeah, I did too.
Mhm.
That was crazy. Yeah, this movie, I maintain this movie's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I certainly think it shows a lot of talent. I think there's something to what Shelton's talking about where it almost feels like a better anthology piece or something. Like it feels a little stretched for what it is, even at 80 minutes.
Yeah,
I
I don't. I
think.
mean, for me,
Oh, we gotta
the
talk. We gotta talk
flair-
about the ending too because. No,
Well,
fuck
yeah,
it.
we can get there. The flair for the art design and sort of the just the cinematography in general, that like I was like more than happy. Like it didn't feel like it ends up feeling richer, the experience certainly than something that's 80 minutes long. I also wanted to respond really quickly because it was something John brought up in the email, which I think it's fair to say that this is like it borders on derivative because it's so sort of referential, or you can so easily identify its its influences. But I mean, to me, like, I don't know, I will take a film that like kind of wears its influences on its sleeve, but is actually like trying to engage them and like you play with them or build around them, over just like, take your pick broad horror
Yeah.
release at the theater.
No,
Yeah,
I think that's fair, and I think that's why I say he's a filmmaker that I'm definitely excited to see more from.
Yeah, for me, those homages or whatever you want to call them from other films really, to me, really kind of help set the mood on what he was hoping for us to feel. I think, especially like when the Goblin music kicked in, things like that. It's like, oh yeah, it's kind of put me in the frame of mind of watching those kind of movies, and then he kind of played with those and moved on to other stuff. You see, I think you said John Shelton. It was De Palma where they do the split screen thing
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and whatnot, and then you kind of get the tension from those kind of De Palma films and everything. So I think he was kind of using them to paint that emotional feedback from us, the viewer, and it could be called derivative, but for me, it worked.
Yeah, it's well done. I mean, it's a very stylish film, and the way he uses it, the way he shoots everything, it looks really cool. The music sounds really cool. It all comes together in a really cool way. But I don't know. For me, there was just something a little like student filmy about it. And I'm with Eric. Like I'm totally like interested in what this guy does next. But I don't know. This felt really kind of indulgent. Like one thing that I mentioned in the email was the Psycho remake. It kind of felt like he was doing that sometimes. Like he's just like, okay, I want to do this shot. I'm gonna make like a Argento shot, and I'm gonna put the music in and do basically the car ride from Suspiria. Like he basically recreates that.
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
like,
be I'll be honest. I just can't get over using actual Goblin tracks. I mean,
hell.
bro, I fucking love Goblin, but it's like they probably need money. Goblin needs money. Just hire him to make new music, or like
I'm sure they got paid
Or-
for it.
Yeah, I mean, he
Get-
definitely like licensed it.
bring in some disaster P, or like there's how many modern synth bands are there that would love to like riff on some old. I don't know. It's weird. I've
Well,
never heard of
They'll
that.
be in the next A24 film.
It's not like you're licensing like licensed music for a. You're taking a movie soundtrack and just using it.
Well, but I mean, look, Casey made the point, and like that is like a choice that is. It's not just saying like, "Hey, I'm referencing these films." Like, it's literally saying like, "This is the
I-
exact movie
I know.
that I want you to be thinking about." I mean, look, like I also think it's worth kind of pointing out, like 95% of people who watch this movie are not going to get the reference.
Sure.
Like, and
course,
and
of
so
course.
that's where it's like, who is that really for? And I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting decision for sure. And I get the like, why not just like do something new that is itself referencing the Goblin stuff? I don't know. Just
yeah, I would say it's a horror movie made by a horror nerd for horror nerds. And I think your normies, your people who don't know the original sources, but they'll still appreciate it. It's still cool. But
Yeah.
a lot of the a lot of the things are just like really on the nose. And he's not trying to hide it. He's not trying to like play it off as anything other than definitely look at where this came from. Or like another movie that I don't think we've talked about yet that I think he definitely drew from was American Psycho.
Yeah. Yeah.
The main guy, he's kind of a yuppie dude. I think the movie's set in the 80s, just based on like there's like a payphone scene and all this. It's not a big part of it, but he's never using a cell phone. He's using like an old
Yeah,
an
and
old hotel phone.
It's funny because I guess I had the thought when he was on the payphone with his wife, maybe briefly, but that's about the only time it even occurred to me that there was.
Well, he's also
something-
wearing like this double-breasted suit that's very 80s.
That's where I was picking up some of the like Wes Anderson-y stuff too. The kind of just I don't know, like I said, like kind of a fake or a constructed environment. It's like you can't even place what time or place he's in because it's such an amalgam of different references and things. So, yeah.
Well, and even American Psycho has the the hallucination part of it, where the world is like talking to him and telling him to kill people or to go through with his plans and all that sort of thing. So yeah,
I mean, one of my favorite parts of the movie was the conversation with the wife on the phone.
Yeah.
It's just a really weird, and it's one of the many like little. There's sort of like 3 to 4 hard breaks in the movie where things suddenly you're like, wait, what? And like literally
what's going
on almost all of them, I skipped back 20, 30 seconds to watch it again to make sure I didn't miss something because just like there's that one, and then the one where there's one a little later on where something's going on and then suddenly he's knocked out in the bed, and that was when I had blinked for a second and I thought I just had missed something. I don't know, some of that stuff was a little jarring in a way that kind of took me out of stuff, but
it was definitely jarring, but I also would argue that that's probably the point, because like John said, with the point with this being definitely 100% an unreliable narrator situation, once you kind of suss that out, it really kind of pinpoints that and how he helps accentuate that, because these throw these moments where we're all of us are going, what the hell, and your rewinds like, what did I miss? It really kind of points out that unreliable narrator. That was one of my more favorite parts in this because it happened a couple times.
Yeah.
You want to talk about ending? Because I think we also got to talk about what Nicolas Pesce is working on.
Pesce.
We have just butchered that guy's name. It's only one syllable too, which is the real amazing part.
We got it right one time in here. That's my hope. So Eric, you like the ending? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I fucking hated it. I was fine with everything except for the fact that it like cuts out. It doesn't give me the thing the movie's promising me. Just do it.
Well, he never promised you anything, bro.
It's too like cutesy and wink wink for me. Like just do it. Just do it and show it to me and let me see it. That's all I want.
But I don't know that's. I get a different takeaway from that, especially after I thought about it. Are we going to get into spoiler territory here?
Sure. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So spoilers ahead. Be wary ye who enter here. So we end up at the end of this movie, and she's got him kind of after she's drugged him with Halcyon, for John's word of the day connection there. She's got him tied up and ball gagged on the couch after she'd beat the shit out of him with a can opener, I believe, the night before. And she's wanted something, a memento, so she pierced her nipple, as you do.
Yeah. And that, I think we should mention, like, that clearly was like an actual nipple piercing.
Yes, it was.
It might have been a stunt nipple, but that was definitely a real nipple going in, or a real needle going in.
I've been meaning to tell you guys about my freelance work I've been doing.
Stunt nipples.
Stunt nipples.
Stunt nippling?
Yeah.
That's good. Good for
Turns
you.
out
Get
you guys
paid.
didn't know this. I have beautiful nipples, and they're actually really wanted in Hollywood. So
Side hustle.
anyway,
That's cute.
random.
So
aside.
our main stars start to come out of his drug-induced haze and everything. He wakes up, realizes he's tied up. The ice pick's on the table, and he starts to mumble through his ball gag. She comes over. They kind of talk for a minute, but she's still got him tied up. She starts dragging the ice pick around him, things like that, and like she's gonna stab him, and he's shaking his head. And then she gets to a certain spot, and he starts nodding his head, and then I believe she takes the ball gag out again, and I don't remember what he tells her then at that point. Could you guys refresh my memory?
I
Something
don't
like,
remember it.
should we eat first or something like
Yeah,
that?
which is
Yeah,
a,
Yeah, we eat first.
which is a
It was the
callback
callback.
to yeah,
It's a callback, yeah, to the
Oh.
to
And then
her,
boom,
when she first
in.
shows up.
and it's in no way satisfying for the end of the movie. So
Yeah, I mean, cut to black.
Yeah. It's for me. I wanted when that first happened. I was definitely felt like Eric. I'm like, what the hell? That's it. As I got away from it, like the next morning, and this movie's still kind of sticking with you. The next morning, you're thinking about it. I kind of liked it a little more because it kind of leaves it wide open. You don't know what the hell. I kind of got the impression that hey, he found his freaky soulmate, and maybe they're gonna live happily ever after, or something like that. Because that's kind of the way it came
honestly,
across.
as weird as this movie is, I might buy into that.
Yeah.
No, so I actually like laughed a good bit when that happened because it is ridiculous and it is like kind of a fuck you in some ways. But
Totally.
to me, like, look, like this guy, the whole movie is about this guy trying to commit this murder to as like sexual satisfaction, gratification, and you realize like he's not getting there, like it's not, and so in some ways it's like representative of his experience. I mean, back to again it being sort of a character study of him and his perspective, but like he's not getting off, and Eric is also not getting off.
No,
At the
I'm
end of
not.
this
Blue
movie.
balls all around.
So, it was I legit that was almost the biggest laugh for me of the whole movie. I was just like, wow.
It is like a punchline because
Yeah.
as soon as it ends, also like the title comes up and there's just like a needle drop of Tenebrae,
Yeah.
and then it's just like more
I-
of the
I
the
think
cool
it's just that,
miniature
like,
city and
And even
Yeah.
like he talks about sort of being influenced by Audition, and it's like, if you're influenced by Audition, like give me the payoff. Like Audition is a movie that without the payoff is unwatchable. So like,
It's a different film, that's for sure.
Sure.
just give it to me, John. That's what I'm trying to say. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So Nicolas Pesce, Eric, do you know what he is currently at work on?
I was trying to make a Joe Pesci joke, but I'm not, my brain's not moving fast enough tonight.
Okay.
Home Alone 4 to
He's-
give his
he's-
uncle some work.
Yeah. That actually would be great.
Actually, Pesci doesn't need work. He's in that new Scorsese thing.
Oh, I haven't seen
The
this.
Irishman.
Yeah.
Well, Nicolas Pesce is working on the Grudge
Ah.
reboot.
The original
Hmm.
Grudge remake, U.S. remake with Sarah Michelle Gellar, pretty spooky.
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I suspect, I sincerely hope we're going to get a different version of the Grudge.
It's interesting to see now. I mean, you think of all the stuff that's been rebooted and retooled and refreshed. It's interesting to all of a sudden starting to see like J horror stuff doing that, because you think of that. I think as we're old, we go like, wait, that stuff just came out, but like actually it was like,
15 years.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, maybe the time is right for like a good director.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that Ring, the Ring reboot really just like set the world on fire, and I don't know. I haven't seen it. I've heard it's awful.
I also think that like if you're a studio right now and you're looking around at all this James Wan Blum money that's just like
All the Blum
people.
stuff.
I mean, Blum's got a swimming pool full of cash in his backyard, and if you're any company that owns any kind of IP that's like ghost related, you must just be tripping over your own blue balls to try to get this movie made right now, right? Like,
Yeah. So it's Ghost House, I mean, which is Sam Raimi.
okay, cool.
And
God, well, I can't remember the last time I heard of that, like that production company's
Yeah.
name.
Did they do the original ones?
I assume they must
I don't even
own
remember.
Yeah,
the
they-
IP. Yeah, they did. 2004. Yeah, I mean, I think like you make a really good point about the sort of like anyone who has IP sitting around. It is weird to me though that we are like, if you think about genre cycles, which I like is how I like to think about these things. We've like, in my mind, we are like very, very late in this like ghost cycle. I mean, we'll see. I think there's a new Conjuring film this year. Like I know there's a new Annabelle film. Like there are more movies coming. So like we're certainly not done by any means. But like for these guys to be like, hey, let's get in there with the Grudge. Like that's what people have been kind of pounding the table for. It like he's got to do something for this movie to land at all, he has to do something fucking crazy.
It's gotta be
is my
wild.
feeling.
It's gotta be wild. Yeah. I mean, who knows?
But if they're gonna go broad with it, look. So right now it has a slated release date of January 3rd, 2020. So if they're gonna go broad with this, like that's what makes me nervous because it's just like, are they really gonna? This guy has done 2 pretty fucking wacky movies that I liked both of,
Yeah.
and now I'm like, if he's gonna just make this like, if this is gonna be his, God, what was when Alexander Aja came to the U.S.? What was his first movie? Because he had done like High
Oh, it was,
Tension and
What Hills Have Eyes? Was that?
The Hills
Yeah,
Have The Hills Have
maybe.
Eyes remake. Yeah, that's what it was.
which like I didn't hate that movie, but like it probably does not hold up super well if we were to go back to it.
I
at this
remember
point.
nothing about
Well, that was a time period when you were a foreign genre director. That was the only way you could like cross over to the U.S. is to do a shitty remake.
Yeah, well,
That
but
was just
like
the thing.
isn't that
The thing you did back
isn't
then.
isn't that what we're getting right now? Like, isn't this like he's not foreign, obviously, but like,
Yeah.
isn't this kind of like art house genre director?
Sure.
I mean, that makes me nervous, but I want to be optimistic. So,
I'm not
you know-
really optimistic on much these days, John. So you can keep that.
Eric, I'm worried, bro. I'm worried. You're in a dark place.
Okay, you okay, buddy?
Yeah.
You didn't get your rocks off at the end of piercing, and now
It's
it's like,
just.
Get yourself some halcyon.
You know, I was
Get
wondering
a
why I was
good
in
night's
such,
rest.
wonder why I was in such a bad mood today, but maybe it's all coming together now. You
God
know?
damn it, Nicholas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call-
So there you go.
Don't call your movie Piercing, and then don't show Piercing.
There was piercing. What are you talking about?
We had a stunt nipple, dude.
I want to see it. Okay. Would you recommend this movie, John Shelton?
I'll say if it were over 90 minutes, no. But since they kept it at a tight 80, yeah, sure.
Casey?
I would say yes.
John?
Yes.
I think if you're feeling adventurous and looking for something artsy, yes. I think if you're like, oh, is this a movie I have to see? I would be like, no, not really. So
Yeah.
you decide
And
who,
essential.
you decide who you are, listener, and make your decision from there. I can't run your life, okay? Stop asking.
Yeah, don't listen to us.
Don't bother taking our recommendations.
Oh wait, we should not say this.
You do what
delete all this.
You
Eric.
do what you want and take everything I say with a grain of salt because I have a fever.
Jesus Christ.
Don't listen to us. What do we know?
All right, guys. That's going to do it for our discussion on piercing. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
What you think of as Jason is not Jason. He wears other people's bodies like folks wear a suit. There's only one way to put an end to him, and I'm the only one that knows the way.
Jason Voorhees is dead.
I don't think so. Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, rated R, now playing.
Hey, this is Noah Hathaway from The Neverending Story and Sushi Girl, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. I forgot to update my animated GIF on our page here, John.
Oh no.
You know it's a hell of a film, John. Jason Goes to Hell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Shelton, you ever seen Jason Goes to Hell?
Of course,
It's good stuff.
it's got a worm, Jason,
It does have a
which
worm
is
face.
what the franchise was really missing was for Jason to turn into a little caterpillar and fly away.
Doesn't he turn into a bunch of caterpillars? Like, isn't that like how he's transmitting himself?
No,
or
John,
something?
No.
What
It's
am I
just-
thinking
It's just
of?
one worm thing.
I'm thinking of something else.
Also
Alright.
starred,
I'll research worm.
oddly
Jason.
enough, like starred the guy from Friday the 13th, the show. Like, remember that show?
Crossover.
Yeah, that's weird, right?
No. No.
synergy.
John, you're not
I
familiar.
don't think I ever saw the show.
You're familiar that you know there was one though.
Yeah.
The show is so disappointing though.
I don't know. I
Because
think
at least like the Freddy show, like it was an anthology, but at least like Freddy hosted it. But the Friday the 13th
Yeah.
show, I remember tuning into that as a kid and being like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
certainly
wasn't it like an antique store?
certainly weird naming. I know some people with some nostalgia for that show, but you can have nostalgia for literally anything. I think if the internet proves
you
that.
could also argue that Friday the 13th is like awkward naming for just like a slasher franchise that has nothing to do with Friday, like the date.
That does kind of drop
Well,
off.
the first, I mean, some of the movies take place on Friday the 13th.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
Do you want me to run you through the timeline right now?
I'll
So-
take your word for
so
it. No,
Fri-
I don't.
You take place on the next
So-
day, so it's Saturday the 14th.
Friday the 13th, part 1, John, takes
Mhm.
place on Friday the 13th.
Okay.
Movies 2, 3, and 4 take place over subsequent days. Maybe not just one day, more than one day, but it takes place basically immediately after the first movie.
So really, it should be the week of Friday the 13th.
Is four
No, I'm
is
sorry.
not a
Wait,
new beginning?
wait. Stand by.
I was
Reverse
gonna
that.
say,
I'm going to take
no,
that back.
Eric, do
Shut
not
up.
even go
Shut-
to the internet to
shut
look
your
this
mouth.
up. I'm going to be very upset.
Shut your mouth.
I'm pretty sure 3 takes place immediately after the next day.
Yes, there's a break between 1 and 2, right? Because 1 happens, then it's like a few weeks later or something. 2 happens, so I don't believe 2 is Friday the 13th. Then 2, 3, and 4 basically all take place in like a close succession. Then there's like really, if you want to talk about the canon here, John. So Corey Feldman is in part 4 as a young boy. In part 5, the same character is played by, let's call him a late teen, like an 18, 19, 20-year-old, whatever. So we're to believe there's been at least 8 or 9 years in between part 4 and 5. Are you with me?
That's New Beginning, right? The fifth
New
one?
Beginning. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
part 5 is on Friday the 13th. I can tell you that part 6 was because they say it.
Mm.
7, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure 8 was on Friday the 13th. I know Jason Takes Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
I know that part 9 is Friday the 13th. I don't know about Jason X. It's a good question.
It's
Doesn't
like Stardate, Friday
Yeah.
the 13th.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have been using a different calendar by that point.
It's like in Prometheus.
Halloween 2,
it's like
November 1st.
It's like in Prometheus when they're celebrating Christmas, and you're like, but how do you know it's Christmas in space?
Do they know it's Christmas after all?
Do they know it's Christmas in space? John,
Yes, Eric.
we got one email this week, and it's my favorite kind. It's a good one.
Is it the one that I forwarded you?
Yes.
Did you get that one? Yes.
I'm a little
I'm very
offended that
excited.
he sent this to you and not me, but whatever.
Well, he sent it to bloodygoodhorror@gmail.com, which we do sort of own and use occasionally.
I like how he guessed an email address and just happened to be right. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, I think it.
Maybe we used that back
might-
in the day.
Well, we might also use it for Patreon stuff. I have to think. I don't know. I can look.
That's yeah.
Anyway,
It might be what the Patreon stuff gets attached
this
to.
is from
There's some other stuff
this
too.
is from Axel, as in Guns N' Roses.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the name of my older brother's pet mouse when we were kids.
Cool.
Little aside. Anyway, Axel says, "Hey guys, I haven't written in a couple of years, but decided it was time since there are a few things I need to clear up from a few recent episodes.
Uh-oh.
Firstly, before expressing shock that the music of Varg Vikernes and Burzum is available on Spotify given his crimes and political beliefs, I think it's important to point out that the co-author of Lords of Chaos, Michael Moynihan, spent most of the 90s as part of a neo-Nazi organization. Of course he did, because this is what I'm learning about metal people, is they're all scumbags. You can find his appearance.
Oh.
You can find his appearance on Bob Larson's Talkback from '94 online, in which he praises the Manson murders and denounces Sharon Tate's mother as a media whore. Still a great book, though.
Is he like a reformed neo? Like there are like there's people now who have like realized their error.
Why
in
don't
their ways,
you
and
start searching neo-Nazi stuff
I'm
on
not
Google
gonna
and tell me how it
look
goes?
this up.
Secondly, yes, Diary of the Dead was pretty bad, but to say that Romero was out of touch with technology is to overlook his brilliant preface to the 1974 novelization of Night of the Living Dead, in which he predicted the ubiquity of the internet, the rise of independent filmmaking, and streaming video services that would usurp traditional media. All that said, Survival of the Dead is basically unwatchable. First of all,
I love.
So he was in touch with technology in 1974, but then not in like
Yeah.
2008.
his presumption that I've read the Night of the Living Dead novelization is hilarious, and
Yeah,
B, Romero sounds like an old man yelling at the clouds in Survival of the Dead, and you will never be able to convince me otherwise.
I mean, like, look, if Axel is truthful in that is something he talked about in the preface, like, that's amazing. First of all,
You
that
know
he
what's funny?
knew
My
that.
first thought was this guy could just be making this shit up, and I'd have no
Yeah,
idea.
well, exactly. I'm like, was there a novelization?
someone-
Did he write the preface?
Can someone scan the preface to this novelization, please? And
It
send
might
to
be
us?
online. We could look. Yeah, and look, like I don't think we would ever argue like Romero's not like a smart dude who's like had smart ideas. Like just to be clear. So
I'm actually not even going to read his next point in the email because I think that he's wrong. I think he's not even. I think he's like, he's taking the nature of what you were saying in a wrong way just to be just to point something out.
I was totally comfortable with you reading it
I
because
don't.
like I was
It's,
going to respond.
it's a moot point, but okay, John.
Yeah.
Third, I had a small issue with Schnarr's describing a character's sexuality in Assassination Nation as progressive. Sexuality is neutral. Attitudes towards sexuality can be described as progressive or regressive, but not sex acts or preferences. I would have expected better from the show's wordsmith. I call Schnarnigans. Clearly, you were speaking about the like depiction of it, not right.
Well,
I
no.
mean, like,
So I think I was referring to the principle and like the point that I was going to make here because like I actually think he's totally fair and correct in calling me out in this regard. Whether Eric, you want to defend me or not, is totally
false.
fine.
No,
My
I
point would
really
be, like
I don't want to defend you, but I just think you're right.
no, I'm going to side with Axel on this one. And the thing I was going to say is like, look, like we're doing this live, and like when we're talking about topics, especially like
As
last
touchy.
week, yeah, like there's times where I'm just like, fuck, what word do I want to use? And
Yeah.
there in a past life when I didn't have children and I read more and I could think more before the show about what I wanted to say, I probably would have tightened that point up a little bit. But he makes a fair point. So
I mean, if I didn't have kids, maybe I would have read the novelization of Night of the Living Dead.
you definitely would have. Don't even
Just
fucking
saying.
give me a maybe.
Lastly, and this is overdue, but thank you very much for bringing Sophie and Cece on board. Their perspective is refreshing, and their analysis of film seems, how to put this delicately, a bit more intelligent than the rest of you clowns, Shelton excluded.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this guy's right. I agree 100%.
Sure, dude. Thanks for giving me nearly a decade of great entertainment. I look forward to the weekends, and BGH is a big part of that. Cheers from England, Axel, AXEL. It's a very British punk name. I feel like this guy wears a leather jacket with studs.
Do clowns mean the same thing in England as they do here?
Yeah. Yes. Sure.
But yeah, good shout. Thanks for the email.
There you go.
As always.
info@bloodygoodhorror.com is email address.
All right, we got some tweets.
John, we can get this paperback for $5.98.
You want me to buy it for you? I'll
Can you?
ship it to you.
Can you?
Yeah,
I
I'll buy
will
it.
listen. I'll read it on the show if you buy it for me.
I'll buy it. Yeah, don't worry.
Do it.
I'll ship you one.
Do it. Let's.
I gotta
pause-
look at.
no,
I gotta see what all the buying options are because it's not. I don't
Pause.
think it's in print.
pause the show. Do it right now.
All right. Do you want? I'm gonna get you a used good.
Oh
as
no!
opposed to-
Get the
Go for
shittiest. No,
collectible, come
I
on.
like I like the worst copy of used book. Like I want library stickers and like written on it.
So there's the cheapest one is used acceptable.
Yes, that's what I
condition.
want.
All
Yeah.
right. Better World Books.
John,
Love
get
it.
it gift wrapped.
Bonus points if it has one of those library things pasted inside of it, where you like the card goes.
The joke is, it's probably like I'm probably gonna have to buy something else. Well, no, because this isn't even Amazon shipping, so it's fine.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be
Uh,
some like bootleg seller. It's gonna take 6 months to get media mail.
No, I
It's a
think
cool
it'll-
cover. I don't know what it has to do with Night of the Living Dead, but
Yeah. Shipping.
So
address.
Axel, I'm gonna get back to you and let you know if you were bullshitting us or not, buddy.
One of my most recently used shipping addresses is actually Eric's address, just for the record.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay. This is Patreon dollars at work, just so everyone's aware. Like this is, keeping Eric stocked with important novelization
Yeah.
of horror films.
Maybe I'll read the whole thing. I've never read a novelization in my entire life.
Oh my God.
oh boy.
I didn't
Yeah.
read it. I didn't read as a kid, dude. I would look at that and be like, I mean, it's got the cover of the movie, but like I could just watch the movie. And then in
I
2
mean,
hours,
Fair.
I'm sure I've read the Goonies novelization more times than I saw the movie.
okay, that I might read.
John, you missed. Somebody asked us about novelizations of.
Yeah, there was a
of
big
movies
question about
recently.
them a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. The only one I could come up with that I can guarantee that I read was the Addams Family film novelization. I'm sure I read others. Like I think I read the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the OG movie novelization.
I
At-
definitely read
mean the
Red
comic book?
Heat, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he's like a Russian cop who teams up
Yeah.
with Jim Belushi. That was a great one.
It's a good movie.
That's no lie.
Oh Christ! All right. Do you want to go to the tweets?
Actually, John, could you buy me this this novelization to the first Halloween for $300 on eBay?
All right. Oh no, we're not doing that.
Oh, come on, bro.
That is an
I
inappropriate.
thought you were
use of-
trying to enrich me here.
No.
No, Eric, you scored a 35 on your test. You don't deserve a $300 copy of Halloween.
It's true. I don't deserve anything.
Are you ready for tweets?
Sure.
We will start with BGH Classics. We have two. The first one comes to us from Space Lawyers Podcast. That's Attorney at Space. Yeah, this is an exchange around the word of the day where I am being interrupted as usual. So I say the word of the day is thorax. And Eric says is as in y'all about to get your thorax tortured. And then Joe chimes in with that is also one of my favorite Limp Bizkit songs. Thorax 1999. Your thorax about to get messed up. I'm trying to do my Joe impression. I can't. I got nothing.
That's a classic Eric Joe 1-2 punch there, John.
Yeah, exactly. Episode 231, The Collection. I thought it was The Collector. Was it The Collection?
Wasn't the collection
There was a sequel?
Collection was a sequel.
God. Oh, I can't believe we
confusing.
watched two of those. I remember there being a sequel now that you say that. Okay, Skizbot comes to us with my hope is that the Saw box set comes in a toilet full of hypodermic needles. Jesus Christ. That's an Eric quote. Episode 298, Snowpiercer.
Yeah, that was a banger of an episode. I recommend that one.
I mean, I don't know what the fuck was going on.
John,
but,
I changed my mind. I want this Friday 13th Part 6 novelization. It's only $20.
Jesus Christ. I draw. Well, we'll see.
Wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny if this whole thing just turned into like a weird novelization eBay obsession for me that like ruins my life?
I think this should be a new segment where just like for
Axel.
10 minutes on the show, you just look through eBay and find novelizations.
Axel's really cracked this open. All right.
I just, as a kid,
SBGH.
I just didn't understand the concept of like reading about a movie I could be watching.
Holy shit, I'm just now remembering I had a novelization of the first Friday the 13th.
Oh, you still have it?
Wow.
Nice. I was big in.
Eric would pay you up to
We
$300.
didn't have HBO.
Do you have this, Charlton?
It could possibly be
Hold on,
somewhere.
I'm looking at eBay. I'm
looking
looking at eBay to see how much it's worth.
Oh my god, I should.
God,
$300.
Eric's gears turning now.
All right.
Still
all
have
right.
that, Sheldon?
Eric, I need you to focus. We have some Ask BGHs here. The first comes to us from Franchise. That's at Matt Foley's van. He says, Trebek is the man. What is your favorite Celebrity Jeopardy skit?
That's a good one. Yeah,
It's hard for me to pick one.
not a
because they're
skit. It's
all
more
just,
like a character. Like
mashed
I
together.
mean, obviously, like Sean Connery's pretty good.
Yeah.
There was one in which Ben Stiller does Tom Cruise. That's kind, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, that is really good. I don't like that. I don't know if I have a favorite.
I like the later ones that just get really absurd, where he's just like, literally write anything, and they just, you know.
I don't know if I've ever told the story. I got to go to a taping of Jeopardy because I worked on the Sony Pictures lot back in college, and I mean, I think Trebek's kind of like had like a, I don't know, late career resurgence or just maybe like a surgence where he's become sort of beloved. I feel like at the time, this was like 2004. I thought of him as just kind of like pretty dry, but like I don't know, still kind of he was interesting enough to host a game show, I guess, but he certainly wasn't like who is now hosting game shows, if you think about it that way. I will tell you, seeing that show taped live, he came out and warmed up the audience for like 20 minutes and was incredible. I mean, it was just like, it was like a different, it changed the way that I thought about him. And so it's like, I'm happy that he's kind of had this career resurgence. I'm very sad, obviously. That
Fun fact: my
he's
mother.
very sick.
I haven't checked in with her since this news. My mother hates Alex Trebek.
What?
Hates him with a burning. She finds him smug, John.
Well, I mean, I can see that. And the funny thing is,
I have not
he's-
checked in with her to see if the diagnosis has
What do you
changed
think
yet.
she's going to be like? Great. I can't, finally.
She's gonna be like, I know. I high-fived myself when I saw the news.
No, but so it was funny. The when I saw the taping, it was like right around like within a month of when he got. I don't know if you all remember. He had an incident where he crashed his pickup truck because the man drives a pickup truck.
Salt
he-
of the earth.
he crashed his pickup truck because he was fucked up on like Vicodins or something, and so he had this whole like, pretty bad, disorder or he was driving while impaired, and but like,
Are you sure you're not confusing Alex Trebek with Johnny Cash?
I'm pretty sure.
Because
But he like came out while we were there in the audience, and he was like talking about it like very openly and candidly. He was very engaging, and it was not smug.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, I guess, but I don't know. I would go to bat for Trebek. So
He's been a long time spokesperson for one of the companies I work for, so hats off to him. I feel bad for him.
but we
His
can
side.
all agree, fuck Pat Sajak.
I don't know. He
got no-
stood up for Vanna a few times on the business end, so that didn't come out as the way I went it.
I'm good with Pat. I'm good with
Sure.
I almost said Pat Sajak talk. That's how much I get. Go ahead, John.
So the next one, this is my favorite tweet in a while. Comes to us from Lori Hovermail at Nylon Devenger. I'm sure she's, she can let me know I'm reading this incorrectly. She says, actual fan, not a plug. And she tweeted back at us because she had previously sent us an enthusiastic inquiry about Dead Ant.
It's true.
Which I gave her a very hard time about and accused her of being associated with the production. And here she is, and she even included a picture of what I believe is her Kindle with a BGH sticker on it. So
amazing.
Ooh.
Listen, sometimes we have to suss this out,
No, Lori, thank you for listening, and I take your suggestion much more seriously now. I think we did say we had to watch it if she tweeted back at us, but we'll see. Cool. All right. Jason's Beard at Beard81Dad. Is this why Eric has been reading so much? And he sends us to a link to a Lifehacker article that says Pizza Hut's Book It program is still around.
Amazing.
It's like the Book It 2019 logo is the link.
I mean,
I've been reading books for free like a sucker all this time.
I'll be honest with you. I also normally fake those book reports anyway, so I wasn't really getting any enrichment out of them.
Yeah. We got one. This looks like a definite robot spam. I don't know. It just says head, HEAD.
Could go either way, really.
Yeah. Well, she like it. Well, I say she. It's definitely some kind of robot. But they also like tweeted to other people with the SBGH hashtag. I don't know.
Don't click that link.
Yeah, no. I'm not. I'm not going near that one. Dylan Lidgard at Dilly D Williams. He says, "Hey all, wondering if you will cover the Blumhouse TV movies on Hulu. Also, have you had a chance to watch the Puppet Master movie on Shudder? I thought it was a fun watch."
Well, it's interesting he says TV movies because I know that was like Spielberg's beef was having that stuff designated as that. I wouldn't call that. I mean, are they just making movies for Hulu? Because I wouldn't call those TV movies. I just call them movies.
So
right?
I'm actually been keeping up with those as they come out every month. They come out once a month at the beginning of the month. They're about movie length, but they consider it a TV series.
Yeah, it's billed as a series, but they're all like 90 minutes.
But it's
Is it good? Should I be watching it?
It's not bad. There's a couple. Some of them are better than others, but none of them have been terrible.
Can you watch them independently, or do you have to watch them all together?
No, they're independently because they come out once a month. There's a new one. So each episode is like a 90-minute movie. So, and there's a couple good ones.
You guys are really confusing me with whether this is a movie, a series of movies, or a show or something.
It's 90 minutes long, and there's no commercials because it's Hulu. So, call it what you want.
But are they interrelated in any way?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's definitely an anthology package that they've set up as a TV series, just with these longer length episodes.
I think it's like, you remember those movies like from years ago that was like movies to watch in the dark or whatever. They came out on DVD and like
8 films to die for.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, except like released monthly.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like.
Anybody watch Puppet Master on Shudder?
Not yet. I'm getting.
Oh, The Little the Strike. Yeah.
I could. Full Moon. It's fine.
I'm saving my Evil Dolls stuff for the new Child's Play. So, the next one comes to us from Miranda Jarvis, and it is It's a little shot across the bow, guys. I'm just gonna let you know. At Ms. Miranda with no I, or well, MRNDA. What would happen if Cece was allowed to finish a thought without being interrupted on the show? Zing!
Listen, no one's allowed to finish a thought on the show except for
Yes.
me. So we're not discriminating when we don't let her finish her thought.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, have you listened to the earlier episodes?
She is welcome to shout me down like anyone else on this show.
Miranda, thank you for listening. I apologize.
Schnars hasn't finished a thought in 12 years.
I was gonna say, if I felt like she was being unduly singled out, I might have different things to say. Skizbot, he says, "What do you call the ends of a loaf of bread, and do you eat it?"
I call them garbage and I throw them out.
He says #breadbutt.
Are they eels?
I immediately
Yes.
throw the first one out. The last one,
What?
it depends. If I need to have a sandwich and there's only those last two left, I will grudgingly use it. But if I just have a piece of toast and then there's just that thing left, that shit goes in the garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
I
kind of comes
agree.
down to how desperate you are for the peanut butter sandwich.
Exactly.
Mhm.
I agree on throwing them out unless you are like kind of in a tough spot.
Actually,
the thing
lately,
I would
it's
say-
weird. I've been flushing them down my toilet lately.
Stop it. Wait, hold on. The thing I am actually somewhat surprised and potentially scandalized by is that you throw it out at the beginning. You don't like save it as like one end of the loaf.
No,
that
because
sort
then
of,
you got to take it out and replace it every time. Like I don't have time for that.
See, Brad.
Yeah, he's talking
Yeah.
about the first one, not the end one.
No, I understand, but like I take like when I open up a loaf of bread, I take it from like 4 or 5 slices in.
Yeah, you got to reach in and pull
Yeah.
from the middle.
You want it to hang
don't have-
together
I
and
don't
look
have
like
time.
just a smaller loaf of bread.
I don't have time for that shit, dude.
Yeah.
Y'all crazy.
Also, like I
Um,
haven't had a real piece of bread in legitimately 6 years, so I don't really. This is irrelevant to me.
There you go. Okay.
The real
MB
answer is
Snowman.
if it's gluten-free bread, it's in the freezer and you eat every piece because it costs like $20.
Skizbot just continuing to pick at the food-based scabs of the
What
crew.
are you doing to us?
Gross.
Uh, MB Snowman at Chris all in OTTE. I don't know. Chris Sally Alienot. That's probably just his last name. You have to get a piercing. Do you want Asami from Audition, Jackie from Piercing, or American Mary to do it?
Easy. American Mary. It's her actual job.
Yeah.
She does it professionally. She's really good at it.
And she's
Jackie
part
was-
werewolf.
She was very precise
Yeah.
in that sequence.
There was no hesitation there with that stunt nipple.
No. Well, Eric just did
Well,
such a.
I'm a
upsetting-
professional.
Yeah, so-
Sorry, it took me a second to
It's
remember my
craft.
joke.
yeah, there you go. Last one comes to us from Cody Yolo at Cody Yolo. How you feel about the every 80s horror movie ever documentary?
I haven't seen it.
Never
Yeah,
heard of it.
I'm sure it'll be fun.
I think he's talking about the fact that there's like multiple sort of like
There's-
look
yeah.
back retrospective documentaries.
My thing with those is like I feel like I'm not gonna get a lot out of them unless you just go full balls to the wall. Like they, those Friday 13th Nightmare on Elm Street people. Those people made like 6-hour documentaries. Like that's some shit. Like okay, I'm probably gonna learn something there I don't know. But you just make a generic documentary about 80s horror, and it's probably gonna be fun. But it's probably not gonna do much for me. I feel like.
Yeah, it's not something I'm going to go seek out. I mean, I
I
love
own-
that era of film. It's not something I'm going to go seek out. But someday I'm going to be feel like watching a movie and not know what I want to watch, and that's one of those are going to come across and say, "Hey, that looks cool. Let's watch that."
Like I own Ghoulies Go to College on VHS, John. I don't really need a documentary. I feel like.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm there for them. I'm sort of with Casey. Like, there's a time and a place, and like, there's gonna be a time where I'm gonna, say, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
So that's all we got. There were the tweets. You made it, Eric. You made it.
Through this.
He's looking a little rough.
Oh, wow.
info@bloodygoodhorror.com is email address. We're also on Patreon, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. You go there, you sign up, you get a live stream of this show every single week, and you also, John, get access to our Slack, a wonderful, beautiful community of nerds being nerdy every day and ignoring their work they're supposed to be doing. It's really fantastic. It's life-altering, I might say.
It's good times. A lot of fun.
So check that out. And yeah, it's going to do it for piercing. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.